Revenge of Surecom. We've done 2 videos on this on the channel already, trying to figure out why it doesn't work. And I got a response back from Surecom, and I will post that on the screen right here. But what it says when I asked them the question and to take a look at the video was connect a 50 ohm dummy load. And I guess they missed the part in the video where I connected a 50 ohm dummy load. I actually connected 2 different 50 ohm dummy loads and it didn't work. So what I found out is dummy loads have a frequency range, and I can understand that they have frequency ranges, but I didn't know it was a thing when I did the original video testing. So what I'm going to do is test out the dummy load real quick. And for these purposes, I'm not looking for exact measurements, I'm just looking for information. So let's get that squared away. I'm going to need some adapters to get onto this thing. Turn this thing on, and let's get this thing set up. We've got channel 1 sweeping from 85 megahertz to 95 megahertz. It looks pretty flat. It's 1.2, so it's not 1-to-1. So we're already slightly outside the range of the dummy load. Let's change the Smith chart over. Marker, display, trace, trace 1, back, format, Smith, nope, channel, that's what I wanted, channel 0. All right, so now we've got the Smith chart in the center with this blue ring showing you the impedance, and it's 42.54 instead of 50, and the range for the SWR sweep is 85 to 95, and they're both working on channel 0. All right, let's change the stimulus, and we're going to start, we were up to 95, let's start at 200, and let's stop at 300. And you can see it's starting to curve up a little bit. So let's go and change the stop to 400. And now you see it going way up high. And in the previous video, we did some testing on UHF and it didn't work. And so I can understand what they were saying, connect a 50 ohm dummy load. But what they should have said was connect a 50 ohm dummy load that is capable of getting a response in the frequency range that you're testing. And so you can see that this thing is not 1-to-1 anywhere across the range of 200 to 400. And you can see this big, huge curve going up where we are losing any ability of this thing to be a dummy load. And you can also see the Smith chart showing that we're way out of impedance and we're getting up into, so we actually kind of curve back. So the highest SWR is 2.1 and the highest impedance is 74. Yeah, almost 75. So that is why that didn't work, but did not know that at the time. So enter in a new character in the saga. The new character is the Cellwave dummy load. FEP Labs and Smoke and Ape did some videos on this thing. This thing is a beast. We're not going to go into too much detail on the dummy load itself, but we will check out real quick with the help of even more adapters. This is an N-type, and I didn't have anything N-type until this, so I needed to go out and get some N-type adapters, and these are Bubreeze adapters. So let's get the right marriage of things happening here. All right, now let's turn this back on and move the dummy load out of the way. And let's get set up to the same way that we were before. And we don't need to calibrate for the same reason we didn't before. I'm just trying to get a general idea. I'm not trying to get any kind of exact measurements. So I need display, trace, select 1, change it to channel 0. So now we've got a Smith chart and an SWR chart on channel 0. And then I want to change the stimulus, and I want to stop it at 500 megahertz. Look at that, it's still pretty good. And we're running from 85 to 500. There's not a lot of samples in there, but again, that's not important. What's important is that we're pretty darn close to 50 ohms all the way up, and our SWR isn't terrible. So we are somewhere around 40 ohms and 1.5 to 1 SWR, as opposed to almost 75 ohms and 2 to 1 SWR. So this will definitely be better for our testing. Now we've got that out of the way, let's get this device out of the way. and start testing with the Shorecom again. So what we did was we showed that the dummy loads we were using were not the right dummy loads for the job. My dummy wasn't smart enough. So I need to move this around so that the dummy load is on the other side. And then plug that in. Turn this on. And we're going to get the world famous Baofeng UV5R. And I've got a bunch of adapters for that as well. So I've got a link in the description down below for some adapters. You are almost always going to need some adapters. And if you've got more than one radio and more than one antenna, or only one radio and more than one antenna, you're going to need a lot of adapters. All right, so we've got that plugged in there. Let's get this plugged in here. All right, I'm going to switch over to frequency mode, and we'll see 433.305. And let's watch the meter as we transmit into the dummy load. 433.305, 1-to-1 SWR, 2.16 watts. Let's check our power settings. TX power high. So 2.21 watts out on UHF. Let's switch over to VHF. 144.390 is the APRS frequency. 144.390, it figured it out. And 0.85 watts, and you can see we're on L for low power. Let's change power settings again. TX power low. TX power high. 144.390. And it's not even picking up the frequency. Okay, 144.390, and we're at 4.5 watts. $144.390, 4.65 watts, 1.0 to 3 to 1 SWR. Let's switch back to UHF. $433.305, that's the frequency in question. And we're at 3.5 watts. So there's a little bit of magic happening when this antenna wire gets coiled up, that the power goes down. And that makes sense. Let's get this thing out in almost a straight line. 3.2 watts, 433.05. Switch back to VHF. 144.390, 3.75 watts. 4.6 watts. So it's very very dependent on how this antenna wire is, how this coax is oriented. Interesting to know. All right, let's change radios. If we look at this real quick before we go, power output 5 watts. This is a very old UV5R. Put that back in the charger. And now what we have is a BTEC DMR6X2, and this is a 7-watt radio. Okay, this is a VHF repeater, and I'm on turbo power. Let's get the antenna sorted out, the antenna wire, the coax sorted out. And 146.85, 7.5 watts on turbo power, 1.0 to 1 SWR. That looks pretty good. Let's change this over to a UHF repeater. Okay, this is a UHF repeater that's not very far away. And let's see what it says on the frequency. 449, 6.19 watts. And again, we're on turbo output power. 6.12 watts, 6.08 watts, 6.04. Excellent. All right, so now what do we want to do? We want to change power levels. Let's change it down to low. All right, so on low power, 0.27 watts out on UHF. and back to VHF. And let's change the power there on that channel. Channel set, TX power, back to low. So now we've got L for low and we're on VHF. And the power is low enough that it's having trouble locking in on what the frequency is. So let's change that to the next setting. What is the next setting on here? Middle. All right, middle power, 146.85 is the right frequency, 2 watts out. Okay, let's change that to high power. High power is 5 watts, 146.85, so it's picking up everything. So low power is so low that it can't detect it properly. And then the rest of the power settings are looking pretty good. Well, let's put this back into high power mode, turbo power mode, so that it's ready to roll for the next time I go through here. 7.6 watts, and as I keep transmitting, it keeps moving. 7.5, 7.48, 7.51. That's not bad. So there you have it. What we needed for the Surecom to work was a good dummy load and a good set of Boo Breeze connectors. There will be a link for the Boo Breeze connectors down below. There will be a link for the Cellwave dummy load. This thing is an amazing brick. I've got to do a video on this because this is just there's a whole lot of stuff going on here that just, yeah, there's got to be some history to this. The Surecom's going to be linked down below, and this radio here has got to be my favorite handheld radio. It's just very easy to use, very user-friendly. I can do just about everything from the front panel on it. Fantastic radio. So what we learned today was that dummy loads matter, and dummy loads actually have a frequency response. Did not know that. So wanted to share that with you guys. There is a video right over here that I think you will enjoy next. Thanks for being awesome.